Thank you for checking out Real Talk Personal Finance. Shit's about to get real. Cash Flow King with you today. And today in episode 53, where's your HSA cash? Thanks so much for tuning into the show. We really appreciate it. I don't have a ton of announcements at the moment. Today is probably going to be a very quick episode, but something that I've been thinking about for a while, something that I noticed myself and I think is fairly important, especially in today's environment. For those of you that have an HSA, a health savings account, listen up. You might want to double check on some things I'm about to outline in this episode. If you do not have an HSA, quite frankly, you might not give a shit about this one, and that's okay. If you don't know what the fucking HSA is, that's also okay. We have a couple of different episodes on that. I think our very first episode was on health savings accounts, and I believe I did at least one more since then. So feel free to go back in the archives and check those out. This episode is designed for those that already have an HSA, or perhaps you're considering enrolling in one in your workplace. We're not quite into open enrollment season for most places, but heading into the fall here, not in the too distant future, this might be something that you want to think about. So as I've mentioned on previous shows, and this is something that I kind of had a what the fuck am I doing moment in my own HSA, everybody's threshold in terms of level of risk tolerance, and how much cash they like to hold in their HSA is going to be a little bit different. And there was a time back in the day where I believe I was keeping closer to 2 years of estimated out-of-pocket max expenses in the HSA in cash, and everything else was invested. Now it's a little bit over a year, but not quite 2 years at the moment, that is sitting in cash. And I realized one day, I never really look at my HSA statements, believe it or not. I mean, I check the balance fairly often. I log into the app. I make my reimbursements to myself as needed, and so on. But something that I really didn't pay that much attention to. And I happened to pull up one of the statements and realized also when I logged into the website that the yield on cash for the cash portion that was sitting in the HSA not invested was literally, and still is to this day, I just logged in before starting this episode, 0.01%, which is fucking highway robbery. Now, you're not going to get rich off of what I'm about to say, and as I always mention, we don't give any advice on the show. This is for entertainment and education purposes only. Always do your own due diligence and seek your own advice from your own financial professional. With that said, I noticed that I was earning jack shit on the cash balance in my HSA at a whopping 0.01%. And it dawned on me that, hey, wait a minute, I've done, and those that are premium subscribers probably know about the Cash Flow King's Favorites piece that I sent out with the different promotions and the different types of high yield accounts out there, both for personal and trust and business and so on. And I realized I was doing some money movement in my other accounts to try to get a higher yield or a higher interest rate on cash that needed to be there for whatever reason. But I didn't exactly do that for my HSA. And as far as the HSA goes, I always had written it off as, well, this is pretty much just going to be dead money, the portion that's sitting in cash. And then anything above that threshold, I'm going to go ahead and invest it, and that's the end of that. But then it dawned on me, wait a minute, interest rates have come up pretty significantly over the past year, give or take a little bit. And why the hell am I not using some sort of other cash equivalent on the investment side to generate a little bit of yield instead of leaving it in the banking portion of the product at 0.01% in my case? So what I did was I took a look around at the investment lineup that we had, or that we have, I should say, in our HSA plan, and there were two potential alternatives that came into play. The one that I ended up choosing to utilize is a very simple money market mutual fund. And so I guess the purpose of today's show is just to bring to your attention, if you have a significant cash balance in your HSA where you leave a portion of it sitting in cash just in case you need to use it, and you're maybe investing the rest, maybe you're not, maybe your entire HSA is in cash. I know that's the case for a lot of people. You may want to take a look to see if your particular HSA provider offers the ability for you to potentially put some funds into something else. And in this case, all I was looking for was essentially a cash equivalent, as close as I could get to that was going to provide a little bit of yield. So in our particular plan, the way that it works is you have to have the first $2,000 in sort of the bank account side of the HSA itself, where you cannot move those into any sort of investments within the HSA. So that $2,000 is basically dead, or earning a whopping 0.01%. And then anything above the 2,000 in this particular provider, you can choose to invest that if you'd like to. And so all I did was say, all right, we're going to leave the 2,000 where it's at because we have to, but the rest of that I'd like to have sitting in cash, instead of leaving it in the bank portion of the account at 0.01%, I'm simply going to move it over into, in this particular case, a money market mutual fund where I can pick up several percentage points of interest or yield. And oh, by the way, because it's contained inside of the HSA account, that is tax-free, which makes it even better, especially if you're looking at it on a taxable equivalent yield basis. And so that's what I decided to do. And I, I think I did this maybe almost 2 months ago, and I was looking at the statement, and literally like the 0.01% for an entire month was next to nothing. And by the time I moved this, I think I had done it maybe middle or end of June. It was only in the money market fund for a few days. And again, it was just a portion of the HSA account that I wanted to have in cash, essentially, and I earned probably like 1,500 times that. I mean, it's just crazy. So, and you could probably do even better than that. I was looking today, actually, in preparation for today's show, and the particular money market fund that they're using on our HSA plan, it does have an expense ratio, which is one reason that I know a lot of people, myself included, would shy away from it. So it does have a little bit of a cost, in this case 0.09%, which I don't love. But if you look at the 7-day SEC yield, in this particular case, we're at 5.09%. So even after you net out the expense ratio, the math is not going to be exactly precise, but it's pretty much a 5% yield. I think back, not too long ago, it was closer to maybe 4.5. So anyway, it's a pretty nice way to get a little bit of extra oomph on the cash portion of your HSA that would otherwise be sitting in the bank portion of the account, probably earning next to nothing, like mine was for longer than I care to admit. And back a couple of years ago, interest rates were so low that it didn't really matter. I mean, I'm sure I could have put it in some sort of a money market mutual fund and probably could have earned a little bit more. But even after those same types of expense ratios, the amount that you would get is probably negligible. Whereas now, if you can pick up, even 3, but more than likely 4 or 5+%, then it's something to definitely consider. And that's what I decided to do with the portion that I wanted to have in cash that was over the $2,000 threshold that our HSA provider requires. So I guess my thing to all of you would be to take a look, if you're using an HSA, to see if you even have some of those options, and most of them do, where you can invest if you wanted to over a certain threshold. And again, you might choose other investments for the longer term money in that account. We talked a lot in other episodes about ways to use it and strategies and opinions, and I won't rehash that here. But if there is a particular number or a portion that you would like to have remaining in cash, and you have the ability to take a look at something like a money market fund or some other sort of cash equivalent, we also have a government securities fund in our particular HSA that's a little bit more expensive and the yield's pretty comparable, so I decided to go the money market route in this particular instance. But you might want to take a look at something like that and get a little bit of extra yield on your HSA cash. So that's really it for today. I just wanted to put that out there and give you guys a quick episode. I did talk to Cube Crusher the other day, and he is going to be working on the newsletter, the e-newsletter for the premium subscribers. Premium! I believe tomorrow morning, which is July 28th. So depending on whether or not I am in town over the weekend or we might be going away, I quite frankly don't know yet. It's a last-minute decision on our part here, but I'm hoping to get that out to the premium subscribers this weekend if possible. We're also going to record a premium episode going over the details of the newsletter. So for those of you that are premium subscribers, be on the lookout for that. If you're not a premium subscriber and you'd like to become one, feel free to check out the show notes, and there's a link in there, and you can read all about the additional benefits that you get for being a premium subscriber. We really appreciate everybody's support. We are still a relatively new show trying to get things kicked off and off the ground here. So Everybody's support and consideration is greatly appreciated. Thanks again for listening to the show. This has been episode 53. Where's your HSA cash? With the Cash Flow King signing off. We will see you in the next episode.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.